Welcome to episode 52 of the Ski Instructor Podcast. My name is Dave Burrows and I am the director and owner of Snowpro Ski School based here in Val d'Illiers in Switzerland. Hope you're all well. I'm surrounded by paperwork, but I've got a couple of days off. Wife and child are off on holiday getting some winter sun, leaving me to half term and managing my team of extremely busy instructors, which is great. The first week of the UK half term has been and gone. That was absolutely crazy, and it's starting to calm down now towards the end of this week, and calms down slightly and getting back to our sort of normal rhythm of work for next week. Snowed last night, so there's a bit of fresh snow on top of the high mountains just looking out my window here, and should give the higher slopes a bit of a top up or a bit of a refresh, which is pretty cool. And there's more snow due on Friday night. I'm not going to sit here and go on and on and on because I've just got too much to do today. But I've managed to find like a small bit of time to edit part 2 of this podcast with Stuart and put it all together. So which is pretty cool. So this is part 2 of the podcast that I recorded with Stuart. I didn't really feel like I'd done it justice in the first part. So we had another sort of separate conversation, and this one was just before the ski season. So there's a bit of kind of chat in there about me sort of prepping for the ski season, which is kind of where we pick it up when we just after the musical interlude that's just coming up. I'm going to go straight through this because I've got nothing to say in the middle bit either. We talk about sort of the value of practicing skiing indoors. We talk about marketing. A bit of a chat on kind of how ski schools market themselves there, which I thought was particularly interesting chat. We talk about bumps. We talk about how an independent ski instructor in the UK accesses the indoor slopes and how that all works. More chat on mental approach, more chat on back. I'm going to try and tone down the back chat now because my back is still treating me well and I just don't want to give it any more attention, to be honest with you. So there you go. Very much hope that you can enjoy this, that you've got the time and that you are able to enjoy this episode of the podcast. For those of you working ski instructors, I'm hoping that you've got lots and lots of work. This year has very much seemed like a sort of a back to normal year. Tourists have come back en masse, and certainly all of the ski schools that I know have been extremely, extremely busy. So it's nice to get back to some sort of normality after a very weird 2 or 3 years previously. Anyway, enjoy the podcast, and I think we start off talking about boots. So enjoy. See you on the next one. Yeah, I think so. I had a dream about skiing the other day, so I'm kind of ready now. And I'm also trying to break in a new pair of boots. So every night I'm kind of sitting around, walking around the house in my new boots, which are actually they're really snug, but I think they're going to be really good. I've kind of got a new liner, a new boot, and it's the new Raptor boots. It's got a bit more space in the toe box, the head Raptor, and that'll be nice because I think it'll keep my toes a bit warmer and give me a bit more flexibility on the foot to actually. The old Raptor had quite a downward slope after that little bit of rubber that keeps the water out, and now it's sort of looks a bit more like the front of a basketball shoe or something. So I think the theory is that your toes can move better, which should be quite cool. I don't know. I'm interested to see if it makes any difference to have, because it's part of how the foot works. Is the toes should move. It's not that they shouldn't be jammed down.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes. So tell me a bit. I used to ski a lot. I've already started recording, by the way. I'm going to sort of cut some of this because I think that's quite interesting anyway. But tell me about Milton Keynes X Cape, because I remember going there when it first opened, because it was that was a long, long time ago. It's not that long though. I don't know how much sort of valid race training you can get in there. It's not a huge slope, is it? It's not the biggest one for sure.
No, it's not. I think it I'd be guessing. I think it's around 170 meters long. I think. I'm guessing though. I'm probably not quite correct there, but it's in or around that kind of length. And actually, you can get quite a lot done on that type of terrain. Just because, like when you're in the mountain, you can get distracted skiing other runs and other terrain.
Yeah.
Whereas skiing, and then you can kind of lose focus about what you're doing. And actually, in that kind of controlled environment, you can just kind of choose one thing and loop and practice it for however long you want to practice it for. So I actually find that you can actually get quite a lot done, even though it's short. But what I have found actually on that note is that you have to be 100% focused each run almost. So like if there are other people skiing, so you've got other kind of obstacles and things, you have to stop, wait for a gap, but actually focus before you ski down. Because otherwise, if you suddenly remember halfway down, I was working on X, you're at the bottom. So it's quite good for kind of focusing that attention to one kind of specific element, as it were.
I hear you, because that's quite important for general skiing anyway, isn't it? It's very easy, I think, when you've got like limitless terrain. So you just ski off from the top of Morjan or wherever it is that you are. Top of Crozet, like you could ski for miles and you could be daydreaming, think about all sorts of other stuff. Like if you've got real concrete goals that you want to work towards, it almost helps, I think, when I've done training in the past, is just to kind of lap a lift or session one particular slope over and over and over again, as opposed to kind of, like you say, getting distracted and going off and just sort of not choosing the right terrain for the kind of thing that you're looking to do.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I agree with you there fully. Yeah, definitely. And because you haven't got those choices of going to other places, you've only got one slope. I guess that kind of helps as well. But what I would say is a lot of people, I guess, more kind of holiday makers maybe, that might go up there and have a ski rather than go and train, and then they get bored. I completely understand. Like, I wouldn't want to necessarily go there and just go and have a ski. It has to be purposeful, if you see what I mean.
Like what do you call it, focused practice, right?
Yeah, exactly. Instead of, right, let's go up to Milton Keynes or Hemel or wherever it is and let's just go and have a ski. I think there has to be some purpose behind it to keep that, so you don't get bored. Do half an hour working on whatever it might be, or 40 minutes, and then switch on to something else. And actually, that's something I've noticed over time, like coaching on dry slope and snow domes and things like that, is like coaching that way as well. Like, I used to just say, for example, just try and work on their long turns for as long as I could until they got better. But then I realized over time that actually there's only a certain amount of time you can focus on one thing, particularly in that environment. So I often find anywhere between like 45 minutes and an hour is a good time to swap on something different, so that they change at their peak rather than coming off of their peak.
So they're sort of coming out of the focus practice feeling good, and then you move it on to something else, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like, right, you've done your best run, now let's change on to something else, which might seem a little counterproductive, but actually I often find, and you probably find this as well, I'm sure most people do, is someone will do an exceptional run, but they might only do one of them. They'll obviously improve through a session, and then they'll get to a point where they'll do a really good run, and then after that, like it won't come back again, if you see what I mean. So it's almost the time to change onto something different. Well, I've learned that myself anyway with coaching other people, is don't try and push for that extra quality run, because it generally doesn't happen. They'll have an exceptional run and then maybe not again for another couple of days, if you see what I mean, as opposed to like that during that day or in that kind of part of the session, as it were.
No, I do see that is something that happens quite often, and I think it's part of the skill of the instructor is to say, okay, that's really quality, let's kind of just knock it on the head there, let's go and do something different. Knowing when to kind of quit on a high note all of those kind of cliches, right? That's cool. And you reckon that that's somewhere indoors that arrives somewhere between 45 minutes and 1 hour?
Definitely, I would say so. Yeah, as long as I aim for around that. So, but I normally find that's the kind of the window. It doesn't often get closer to the hour. It's closer to the 45 minutes. So generally, like if I'm working with someone in in a snow dome somewhere, and say I'm working on long turns, I might do, and that includes their warm up as well, like whatever that might be. But I generally have a specific focus within the long turn. So I don't know, balanced on the outside ski, for example, and then build the performance up during the warm up, and then increase their performance through to the end of up to those 45 minutes, and then switch, and then maybe carry across, being balanced on the outside ski into short turn. So I still have the same focus, but the task is different.
Okay, so you're carrying the same kind of thread, if you like. Not thread as we understand it in basic world, but
Basic
like
terms. Yeah.
Thread as in like there's a common golden piece of yarn that runs through the session, through say a session of 3 hours, I'm guessing is what you're doing. And the focus is similar. Oh, sorry. So the focus is similar, but the tasks are different.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then actually, I work with people over a longer period of time, so it might not just be like that 1 or 3 hour session. It might be multiples of 3 hours over a year or whatever. So what you might find, as I'm sure you do, or anyone else, but is you might have that same focus over a number of sessions. Obviously, you maybe experiment with how that's delivered, so it comes across more interesting, as it were, rather than we're just going to do the same thing over and over and over. You will maybe have the same being balanced on the outside ski, for example, but delivered in a slightly different way over a number of different sessions.
Yeah.
Or whatever it might be, just using that as an example.
But it's lovely to have the time with people to do that.
Yes.
That's a very, I mean, a lot of the instructors who will be listening to this might be, I mean, their experience might be slightly different. Let's say you're in a more tourist-focused resort and you don't see the same people regularly. You might see them once a year, but you might, a lot of people I think a lot of sort of tourist skiers like to go to different places and explore different resorts each year. And so they're looking, they don't get the luxury like you and I would do, because our ski school has a lot of repeat clients, people who come every weekend. We don't get, they won't have necessarily that same luxury of doing what we're doing, which is like getting to really get to know the client deeply and getting to know their movement patterns deeply and being able to make sort of fairly significant long-term change over time.
Yeah, definitely. On that note, actually, so I do in the mountains, if I've got someone for a week, if we're using that example, which I guess is more traditional ski school, I guess, it's a similar thing that I do, but over a week period as opposed to months or years, for example. So you'll still have the same peaks. You have the benefit, though, in the mountain environment, or at least I find, of having the variety of terrain as well. So you can work on one, like you said, looping on one lift, or doing it on multiple things with the same, multiple terrain, but the same focus. And you could have that same focus throughout the day if you wanted, and then just vary the tasks within that kind of time frame, as it were, if you had them throughout the whole day, or if you had them for half a day, maybe half of the session working on one specific task, or a couple of tasks with the same focus, and then change onto the next. So it's a similar thing, but in a shorter time frame, I guess.
Yeah, and the luxury that you have of a mountain environment, I guess, is like you can take people to and from terrain according to their skill level for the task that you've set. Right, so if it's too hard on slope X, you can always take them to slope Y, which is a little bit more shallow, and see if they can do it there, and then work between places. That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and chop and change it as you need. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, spot on. Yeah, it's good.
One of the things that we often do, though, I think the skiers or the ski instructors in a resort kind of environment also have to have one eye on. Let's say they're people that are visiting the region and they're here for a week or something like that. The goal of the client might not be the same as the goal of, say, your typical client, which might be to kind of get better over time, right? They're looking for a sort of focused practice. There's an element of, when people come to touristic regions like this, is that there's an element of like showing them around as well. So you've got to kind of be quite careful to make sure that you know what the client wants exactly before you just hammer them for 3 hours on like the same slope, because it might be that they just want to be shown around and shown the sights and know the name of all the mountains and know where the best restaurants are and all that sort of stuff. That's something that a couple of our guys, one of my guys, Mike in Villar, does really, really well. He does the host thing really well. He's a great teacher as well. Like, he certainly do all this stuff that we're talking about, but he does the host thing. Like, this is the best restaurant. These are the easiest slopes. This is when to ski them. Let me show you some of the secret spots, all that sort of stuff like that. That's in a place where the instructors are more, tourist focused. That's very much part of the client experience that you want to give them.
Oh, definitely. And I guess I guess we all do it automatically anyway, isn't it? We obviously find out what the client wants at the beginning of the week or beginning of the session or whatever, and obviously tailor whatever it is towards them. So if they want to develop their performance, they'll aim it towards that. If they want us to look around, get to know the area and improve their performance, then you obviously adapt the delivery according to what their requirements are. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, no, that's a really good point.
But I'm guessing the way that your marketing and everything is set up, you attract, I suppose, because your marketing then sort of dictates which kind of clients you get, right? So you probably don't get so many of those type of clients. You're looking for you're the way, forgive me if I got this completely wrong, but everything that you say and everything about you and the way that you sort of present yourself, I would guess tends to be the fact that you get clients that are looking for that sort of significant long-term improvement in their technique.
That's a really valid point. And actually, I hadn't consciously tried to do that with my marketing, but actually, yeah, you're right. That's exactly what I do with the content I put out. Yeah, no, that's bizarre. I hadn't really thought about that, but you're right. Yes. So a lot of, since being independent and not working for other people, they are generally the type of clients I do seem to attract, other people that are, keen to improve, keen to make change. And no, you're right. And so the majority are like that. And even, I guess the kids, like the private coaching that I do with the kids and things, I get a similar thing, but obviously balance that off with fun. But you're right, yes.
It's an interesting thing, because I think a lot of people. Who was I talking to about this the other day? I was talking to Max, one of my instructors, and he was he makes surfboards in the summer, and he was trying to work out sort of sales tactics for people that were interested in buying his boards. And I was like, well, kind of one of the first things that you've got to do. I'm quite a sort of a marketing head these days. Like, I don't, I teach still, but I'm kind of a lot of my time is spent on sales and marketing. And I think one of the things that any ski school or instructor, independent instructor, has got to work out for themselves is like, what is it that they offer and which particular market niche are they going after? Because if you try to be like a massive generalist and you try to be all things to all men or women, I don't think that necessarily works. And I always find it funny when I go on other ski schools' websites and I kind of see them, there's like the client has an offering made to them of about, 25 different things. Do you want a 3-hour collective lesson? Do you want an all-day collective lesson? Do you want kids? Do you want an off-piste clinic? Do you want a freestyle camp? Do you want this, that, and the other? It's like, wow, like that's over choice. Whereas hopefully the client experience you would find when you come to Snow Pros is like, it's very clear what we offer, what we offer it to, and your choices are very limited actually. So it's like, here are our options. It's like this, or this. There's only 3, and it's like all the marketing words are like set up to say this is the kind of client that we want. And what that means is that we get the clients that we want, like that we work really well with. You know, it's not, I'm saying I only want, you know, like Russian people from, you know, with, you know, Russian oligarchs, for example. And by the way, there are ski schools set up for that. But we work very well with a certain type of client, and they're the clients that we want. And that makes the whole sales process much, much easier. Whereas if you try to put down like you're a massive generalist and you do everything, it might well be that you can do that, but it's a pretty wide net that you're casting, and you're not really talking to that particular subset of the market that you really, really want, you know, whatever it might be. I think it's an important thing for ski schools and independents to work out what it is that they're good at, you know, and then to target it.
Definitely, that's really interesting. Actually, I think I've said to you before, maybe earlier on in this interview. I can't really remember now, but we spoke about so many things. But I've done quite a lot of like online courses and things like that. And one of the courses that I've been on talks about finding your avatar, which is exactly what you're talking about, isn't it? Is finding what the type of client that you would like, or the type of, exactly, and then designing your business, I guess, towards that client, and then aiming towards them rather than, like you say, generically to everybody. Because actually I found if you give people too much choice, they don't make a choice at all.
Absolutely. And that's like, it's modern life in general, isn't it? It's like over choice. I talked about it ranted about it on the last podcast that I had. It's like the experience of going into a coffee shop in England is you've got too much choice, you know, and in the end you're just pissed off because you've got too much choice. You know, you just want a coffee. A good one. It's all you want to say is, I would like a coffee, please, and that's that. You don't really want to end up having, you know, like a million choices that go repeating back to you. Which one of these 25 choices would you like for your coffee? It's like, well, I'm not really, you know, I'm a busy guy. I haven't really got time to look at your menu. Can you just serve me a coffee, please? I think something's been lost in life in general with this sort of over choice that everyone is presented with now. Because I think everyone's just wandering around confused because they've just got too many choices, you know?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point, actually.
But I mean, I think subconsciously looking at your marketing and how you do things, you know, your website says what it says, and, you know, all your online marketing is very, very focused towards people's personal development. So, like, if I'm looking for a generalist ski lesson, I'm probably not going to approach you necessarily, you know, because you're not offering that thing. So although you say to me maybe you haven't sort of thought about it that deeply before, I think you already have, and you kind of already have designed it that way. You just kind of not done it consciously, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I talk about what interests me as well. So I guess that's exactly it. I've subconsciously put the word out there that's the type of client I'm looking for. But yeah, I guess it's what I'm interested in. I believe if you, I guess, are passionate about whatever subject it is, and you can put that across, then you know, that helps people, and you put more like behind it as well. If you really believe in what you're kind of delivering and what you're talking about, as opposed to necessarily, I don't know. In the past, I've worked for other people, and I haven't necessarily been convinced by the product, but I'm just delivering the product, whereas I'm convinced by what I talk about. So maybe, so it comes across, hopefully comes across in I'm trying to think of the word, I think more authentically, I guess.
That's right. Yeah. And you attract like-minded people, and people can tell, right? People can tell when you're not authentic and you're just kind of faking it. And so, you know, they can tell on a sort of a subconscious level that you're not what they want, and so they'll just go and find other people. You know, like when inquiries come through to the ski school, I know which ones we're going to get, and I know which ones we're not going to get. So my, stats that I keep as to my kind of sales conversions, because I'm the salesman, I suppose, is that, I'm not too stressed about the ones that come and inquire because that I don't get, because I know which ones we won't get. So I can kind of subconsciously put themselves out of my mind. And curiously enough, the ones, well, I'll tell you, but the ones that we don't get are the ones that mention price in their first message. They're the ones I don't get, because for us, they're not necessarily in it for the right reason. We are, very focused on kind of the teaching aspect and kind of that sort of thing. And where people mention price straight away, they're not looking for the thing. They're not looking for the thing that we sell. So I'm kind of already, dismissed them to a certain extent, which is curious, but it's just kind of what I've noticed. And those people will end up then with maybe like the local red school putting their kids into a collective environment, and they'll do that because it's cheaper, and it's what they're essentially looking for is childcare as opposed to skiing development for their kids. And that's okay, like every ski school's got its USP and everyone does their own thing, and that's what the local schools do, is like mass snake groups. And if you're okay with that as what you want as a product, then that's just also fine as well, right?
That's a really good point, actually, about what you were saying about comparing clients that don't necessarily, they're there for different not the wrong reason, for different reasons other than coming to you, or it might be just trying to look for a lesson.
Absolutely, their reasons are valid, right? They're looking for something, but you are not offering the thing that they're looking for, so you can just let that go, and it's not worth, because their experience will be crappy if they come to you and they're not looking for the thing that you're offering. So if you manage to kind of sell it to them, but you don't really, it's not the thing they're after, they're going to walk away disappointed, and then you'll get a bad review on Google or whatever. So it's fine, and I often send clients off and say, if you're not, we're probably not, I'll say to them very often, you're not something, you're not our type of client, but we don't offer the thing you're looking for. You should go and speak to X ski school. They do this. And I'm okay with that, because it means everyone wins. Like the guys that I'm referring to, they'll get a referral and say, I spoke to Snow Pros and they referred me over to you. Well, that's great, because next time I see that guy, he's going to be like, oh, thanks very much for that. He knows that I'm a friendly guy. He knows that I'm not necessarily in competition with him. I'm just doing my thing over there, and they're doing their thing over here. And that's all right. There's plenty of room, right? There's the people that think there's only one pie and you can only split it up a certain numbers of ways are kind of limited in their thinking, in my view.
The other thing with that, actually, is a win. It's a win for the other company or school or whatever it might be, but equally the client hopefully will feel, actually, Dave's helped me out here. We don't necessarily fit with what they offer, so he's helping me by giving me a contact somewhere else. So
absolutely, and they're happy for it, and hopefully they're not necessarily going to, but hopefully they're going to think, well, he's a really nice guy, and maybe one day when their budget is bigger or something, they'll come back to us. Maybe they won't. It doesn't matter, does it? But I think it's quite an important thing. Like that concept of, because if you look at the overall bigger picture from a touristic point of view, that person might have spoken to me, I might have referred them on to somebody else, and they might have then found the solution that they're looking for. But the important thing is that they come to the region and they're welcomed to this region, and that they spend their time here and they have a good time. And everyone's involved in that, like everyone at the airport, everyone at the transfer company, everybody at the, everyone on the train, everyone on in the restaurant, everyone has got to do a good job to encourage those people to have a good time and to come back. Otherwise, they're lost, right? They're going to go somewhere else or do something else, or they might go to the beach in February instead of spending all this money they spend on going skiing, right?
I hadn't really thought about that, the bigger picture, but yes, you're right. You're completely right there.
And I mean, you're part of that too, right? Because I'm sorry, I'm a bit of a rant here on it, but I mean, the guys at the snow domes do an amazing job, and I've said this before, and I think I thanked Pete Gillespie on the podcast when I interviewed him, because the guys that get people ready in the snow domes that are coming out to a real holiday, a real snow holiday, are doing an amazing job, because they get all the basic stuff out of the way for us, so that we can arrive at the top of the beginner slope and be sort of, oh wow, you can already make your turns and do what they've done, all that stuff that takes a lot of time. So those they're doing God's work, like those guys who are working in the snow domes for the regular ski schools. And then we'll get guys who ski with guys like you, who want a bit of a kind of a ski about, and they'll come with a really, really good technique or really good kind of thing, and we can kind of show them around and really cover some mileage, and it's like, I think we're all working together, really, all of us in snow sports.
Definitely. I couldn't agree more. Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
What can we? Let's move this on. So you've got 170 odd meters slope in Milton Keynes. Obviously, you don't only work there. I know the value of the sort of the focused practice that you can do. I actually came and skied. This was as I was going through the instructor system. At some point, I was a bit stuck on bumps, and I came and skied with Andy Bennett, who at that time, I don't know whether he's still working with Warren, but there was a bumps day, and it was either at Milton Keynes or it was at Hemel, one of the two, and there was a huge amount of benefit that I got from just going round and round a very small, it has to be said, small-ish mogul zipper line over and over and over and over and over again for a day. I think it might have been in Manchester, actually. Yeah, it was, because I remember flying in and staying in some horrific Holiday Inn thing near the Trafford Centre. So it might have been, what's that one up in Manchester called?
Chill Factory,
right? So I was there, and by the end of the day I was getting super confident with it, and I was really attacking this kind of bump line because it's consistent and it's got the same bump in the same place every single time. And you can start to feel really, really good about yourself. And eventually I found a similar bump line in Sassafay and was attacking that as well. And actually by the time the bumps came round, with a bit of kind of visualization work and stuff on that test that I had to do, actually I smashed it. It was the highest score I got out of all of the tests that they put us through that day. And that, I suppose what I'm saying is, I wonder if you can expand on the value of that focus practice for people, for when they then take their skills to a more of a sort of an alpine environment.
So actually, I'm glad you brought up bumps, because I think that is a really, really good example of that. And actually, so I run bumps courses up at Chill Factory like once a month.
Okay.
And
right.
The bumps up there are amazing. They are so realistic. I think it's well. I would say they're the closest bumps to being in the mountain that you can get in the UK. I reckon they're really, really good there. So that's the first thing. The second thing I was going to say is the amount of mileage you can get, like skiing up and down that section. So I think Chill might be a little longer. I think.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, it's pretty much the same. It's pretty much the same gradient all the way down. And if in Tignes, for example, which is where obviously I teach, is if we're doing bumps anywhere, I often use a run called Tignes. Now the issue which is a great bump run. Have you skied in Tignes much?
I'm trying to think. I've skied the bumps in Val, so I remember having a really good experience skiing with Giles Lewis in the I can't remember that, like the slopes are numbered or were they lettered? Don't know.
That might be S bumps.
S bumps. That's it. Those Basie ones, where they have the bump shootout basically thing. But I didn't ski bumps in Tignes. No, all I remember about Tignes was that it was just great to ski, fast piece.
Okay.
Like go where you want kind of thing.
Yeah, no, it's good for that. There's a bump run called Tignes. Well, actually, it's not called Tignes, but the lift is called Tignes.
Okay.
So we'll call it Tignes bumps. Anyway, it's going over towards Val, so it's on kind of that border type of thing.
Yeah.
And so there's a section along that bump, on those bumps, which on the flatter section, which is probably a similar gradient to Chill Factory, and probably, well, Chill Factories are probably a little bit shorter, but either way, the point I was going to make is if I wanted to loop on there to work on bumps or train people in the bumps, it's probably going to take me, if I'm quick, maybe 20 minutes per turnaround, and it's a high-speed lift. So you've got, I don't know how long it is, the bumps themselves, maybe 200 meters worth of bumps that you would use, little bits at the side you'd use. But if you mainly just focus on that stretch of bumps, there's maybe 200 meters of bumps that you would use. Yeah. But you've got quite a lot of skiing to be able to repeat that.
Absolutely.
So it might take 20 minutes per turnaround, or maybe, 20 minutes per turnaround, including the lift ride. But at Chill, it's 5 minutes.
Yes.
Assuming there isn't a big queue. So you can do 5 minutes per run on the same section as the bit I would use on Tignes, for example. So you can get a lot more runs in the time frame. So actually, I think it is, for that reason alone, really, and the fact that it's, I think, was it Andy David that was head of snow sports then? Or
no, it was Andy Bennett.
Bennett.
Yeah, you remember like Andy Bennett, freestyle guy. I don't know whether he's still teaching or not. I hope he is. But he used to work for Warren Smith.
Okay, there was someone else that used to, I can't remember his name now, but he used to be like ex-British freestyle team, and he used to be head of the snow school at Chill Factory, and I believe he trained them how to build the bumps. Oh, okay. So that's why they are so good. And they obviously continue to, he doesn't work there anymore.
They are really
and
good.
They continue to do it like that. And sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say they are really good. I remember them being kind of just exactly, I mean, they were a little tighter than Alpine bumps, but they were they all arrived in the right place. There was a consistent line. You had that kind of scraped bit before you hit the face. And I suppose I'm sitting here on an audio podcast, like doing things with my hands to show what my feet would have been doing at that moment. But what you do is you get the opportunity to perfect a movement pattern and then repeat it until it's in your, hardwired into your brain.
Yeah. What I would add to that, actually, which is quite important if you're going to do that, is you have to because up there you end up with about 3 or 4 different lines, because it's quite wide, the slope, is trying to ski all the different lines to build the versatility, because the danger is, as a negative to skiing in a snow dome or snow facility, is you end up repeating the same movement patterns but without versatility. So you'd have to do it tactically, so that you ski not just one line there, ski multiple lines, and then vary the lines, so you build in the versatility and the technique to carry it across into the mountains. Because, like you say, they're really rhythmical, but the ones on the mountains generally aren't.
No.
Unless it's skied by good skiers, run after run after run after run.
Well, absolutely. But I mean, so for me, the reason that I went back to practice it there was because I was struggling with specifically skiing a zip. And having that bravery to kind of stay in until you had an opportunity to slow down a little bit to where you kind of were happy and comfortable. Like there's a bit in certain zipper lines where you just hanging on until you see an opportunity to just take off that speed. And it might be like a big face where you can really compress, or like a slightly longer one where you can really scrape down the backside, for example. And so I knew that the test in the exam that I was going to do invariably would have been skiing a zipper, and as it turned out, it was a red pieced zip in Zermatt, and it was I just needed that time in a zip to practice and get all the movements in order to be able to pass that one thing. So I was being a bit tactical, I suppose you could say. And at that time, I think when I went there, they only used half of the left side of the piece, so it was pretty zippy. There wasn't many options to ski round lines and up and overs and all that sort of stuff. But certainly if they've expanded that, you could see how you would have the time to show everyone all the different lines.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
So that's what you work on when you're in there with your clients running your bumps clinics is I suppose depending on what they want, right? You're showing them different lines initially.
Yeah, so I guess probably the first, if they're lower level, I guess the first thing is just getting them down it. So that, yeah, you probably just, full line, quite skiddy type thing, and then rounder lines, and then different lines, and then maybe varying speeds. That's quite an important one I try to do, going faster, slower, to give them the skills, but also I think for good psychologically to know, actually, I can slow down if I want, or I can speed up if I want, or I can change my line if I want. Having that kind of the options there to be able to make those changes there and then, but also more for the mountains. So actually, I try to use like any artificial slope as a training ground for the mountains. Sometimes people can use it as a training ground in its own right, rather than to teach them to be better in the mountain environment. And there's an example I've got for that, actually. When I used to do a lot of coaching on dry slope, I used to do a lot of race coaching for Wickham Race Club, and I did a trip. I can't remember whether it was pre-season or in the summer. I'm not quite sure. Like a race coaching trip to team, and I had one of the guys on there that was like, basically he was number one, like racing on plastic, and I'd ski with him a lot on on plastic. He was coached by me and a number of different other people on plastic, and he'd win everything on plastic, but couldn't ski on the mountain because, or he could, but not as well as he should, because he was too used to going straight, rather than trying to use the plastic to ski better on the mountain, if you see what I mean. Turnier courses, trying to turn the feet more so you have more speed control for the mountain environment. So he really struggled, like when he got bumped, like rutted, and when it got steeper, because of that, basically. So that's what I mean about kind of using the environment to get better for the mountain, as opposed to use the environment to get better down that one piece, which is where I think it's quite important to build in that versatility. So that might, if we've related that to bumps already, but it could be the same with like carving or short turns, is experimenting with different edge angles in a carved turn, for example. Like this is in a snow dome, experimenting with different amounts of edge and different speeds that you do that. So like the range of movement and the rate of movement, because that then builds in the tools to be able to ski the mountain, rather than just ski better at Hemel or Chill Factory or whatever.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think there is something about the consistency of the surface and consistency of the slope angle that definitely makes that much easier. Yes, definitely. Because otherwise, I had another situation a bit like that, where it was, I was training people for their level 3 exams a lot in the UK, and then took them out to the mountain. But in retrospect, I would have done things different. They were so used to it feeling so good in the snow dome that when they got on something more challenging on the mountain, they found that challenging. So, like psychologically as well. So from that point on, I then decided I need to try to teach in a different way to build in that versatility and have different expectations
as well, like skiing in more challenging conditions is not going to feel the same as skiing on skiing in a snow dome for the first hour, like it's corduroy, firm snow. It's going to feel good, but you're possibly better to ski when the snow's more chopped up, to not have that false perception of what it can be like on the mountain, if that makes sense. So is giving awareness of that and giving them the tools to be able to have versatility, accept that it's not going to feel so good in various conditions, or it's going to feel different. So have different expectations for the mountain, different tools and different expectations, if that makes sense.
Now, given that the slope angle is always the same, all right, we talked about changing conditions, but given that slope angle is always the same, the environment is roughly always the same, weather's always the same indoors, how do you then increase the difficulty of the task? Well, I kind of know the answer, but maybe you can expand on how you go about increasing difficulty for people.
So the example I said in the bumps about different lines, different speeds. That's what I do in the bumps. For long turns, for example, first of all, you might have a set corridor that you want them to ski within. So that might be, 5 meter wide corridor, for example. And say maybe the first few runs they can do 5 turns within that corridor. Still within the same corridor, encourage them to maybe get 6 turns in and still be clean. So they have to get more angle. So you're encouraging more range of movement by getting them to get more turns in within the same corridor. You could then have varying corridors as well. So you could have, I would probably initially do it in a slightly wider corridor, as much angle as you can get, then a slightly narrower corridor, much angle you can get, and then vary the corridors. So it's the same thing, really, that I would be doing in the bumps, but in long turns. Because that's then encouraging them to do different movement patterns rather than do the same movement pattern over and over and over again. So that's making the task harder. Short turns, similar thing. You might aim for, like a 2-3 meter wide corridor, for example, trying to grip from the fall line, say. Once they can do that, narrow the corridor a little bit, but still try and grip at the same point. So you're getting them used to doing different movement patterns again. And then you could do hourglasses and things like that. So start off with a slightly wider turn, then narrow it, and then open it out again, and then do them in reverse. Basically just doing everything, just doing lots of different things to build versatility so they have more tools to choose from. Because obviously we can't make the slope steeper, so we have to make the tasks harder. And actually you could do loads of other things. You could do balance drills, continually jumping, trying to have good kind of posture and things like that, or running, or skating, or balancing on one leg, skiing on one ski, all of those things. Anything that challenges people will build in more tools to be able to make corrections, basically, rather than just repeat this short turn and this long turn in these corridors. Because otherwise, when they get on a mountain, they're going to try and do that one turn on every slope, and that won't work, obviously. And actually, I spend a long time explaining that. So you could do, another example. So Hemel, for example, is a little bit steep at the top and then flattens at the bottom. In fact, I'm trying to think now, most snow domes are a bit like that. So steep at the top, flatter at the bottom. Another one could be short turns, trying to grip from the fall line, but stay at the same speed throughout the run. So they're having to change their line. Just different things like that to encourage versatility.
And then when you get, let's say you then take one of those clients from the indoor environment. I mean, I'm assuming they would have been skiing before, but the indoor environment, then they come out and see you in team, for example. What are the sort of things that they're saying when they come to ski in a bigger and more varied environment. Now, I'm guessing one of the first things is that they're surprised that they are more maybe fatigued in the legs or something, because you don't get that sort of 20-second burst or 40-second burst going up and down, and then the rest of getting dragged up the drag lift. The slopes are longer. What are the kind of things that they notice about the difference between the indoor environment and the alpine environment? Not your words, but their observations.
So are you kind of thinking someone that's never been to the mountains before?
No, but I'm guessing, because I'm assuming that most people will have, but the observations that you get from clients that you've skied with indoors, who then have come to see you in Tignes, and the sort of things that they say, like their observations on what the differences are. What do they notice?
So you said a couple already. So yes, there will be fatigue, definitely.
Yeah.
They may talk about, particularly Tignes as well, because you're high, being out of breath. So fatigue as in muscular fatigue, as opposed to out of breath and being out of breath. So they're probably the two. But equally, you might have the different snow conditions, like how to ski the different snow conditions in comparison to skiing indoors, or weather conditions as well, because obviously they're not used to that, and the speed actually, because obviously it's quicker.
Real snow is faster.
Well, just because it's steeper, isn't it? Or could be steeper, but yes, quicker.
Yeah.
So they're probably the main ones. Yeah.
Okay.
And then things that I would maybe do to help with that might be, first of all, might be like, for example, maybe fitness, like fatigue and things like that, is just making them aware. Like you've just said, it's longer runs, you're going to get more tired. That's kind of normal. And we tend to do short stretches anyway. So, like if you're skiing a run, not necessarily doing it all in one go, but doing it in sections.
Yeah.
And then over a week, say, you'd increase the length of those sections. It's the same thing. You're just building people up gradually to kind of address the fatigue side of things. But actually, that's quite interesting what you're saying about muscular fatigue. I know it's not really, and just feeling physically fatigued, not specific to your question necessarily, but I think this is quite an important point to kind of make. I get, and I'm sure you have, and I'm sure many people have, you get a lot of people that say, Stuart, I'm getting really, really tired. I don't really understand. I can't be doing something. Maybe I'm not doing something right. And I'm like, well, it's not necessarily you're doing something wrong. So I say, well, how many hours skiing are you doing per day? 5 or 6 hours. Okay. How many days a week are you skiing? 6 days out of 7. Okay. If you went to the gym 5 to 6 hours a day for a week, do you think you'd be tired? Yes. Okay. Well, so I often find like that is quite an important thing as well, is that not specifically related to your question, but just as a general point, is that maybe people think that skiing isn't tiring, but obviously we all know that if you're skiing hard, which they are because they're trying to get better, it's tiring. And if you do it all day, of course it's tiring.
I've never really understood that kind of first lift, last lift thing. I've always thought to myself, less is more in a way, more quality. Especially given how the conditions deteriorate over a course of a day. Like I don't know why anyone would want to be skiing. The one I really don't understand is night skiing. People love night skiing. I'm just like, why are you doing this? Piece of trash. They've been going all day. It's freezing cold. Like, what is I think you do night skiing once and then you realise it's terrible, and then you just give up. It's very funny, but yeah, there is that certainly. I think people do tend to overdo it a little bit, but you can kind of see why, I suppose. If you sit behind a desk, in an office 51 weeks of the rest of the year, you kind of want to make the most of it, right? Like I could understand.
Of course.
I could totally understand that.
Yeah. No, I just I like to point that out because then they're like, oh yeah, I haven't really thought of it that way.
Yeah.
It adds a bit of perspective to it, I find. But,
yeah. Yeah. How does the question that's just popped into my head is like, how do you get sort of slope access? Because you're an independent working in the UK, you're going from different slopes, this, that, and the other. Like, how do you get slope access? How do you organise days like bumps clinics and all that sort of stuff? How does that work what are the logistics of that in the background?
Okay, so basically, at each facility, you have an agreement to work as an external instructor, basically. So everyone has to be pre-approved. So they have all of our like insurance details and licenses and things like that. And I think everyone has to be a minimum of a level 3, basically. Well, they do it at Hemel. I'm not sure at the others, but something along those lines. But everyone has to be pre-approved, and so they have all our details, basically. And then we have to pre-book everything as well, so we can't just rock up and do what we like. It all has to be pre-booked and prepaid for and things like that for lift passes, etc. So that's how it kind of works there.
Okay. And then if you want to put on like specialist clinics, like, or do they let you know when like mobile days are, or do you organise that with them?
So bumps courses, for example, I kind of plan they build bumps. So Chill, for example, they build bumps once a month, and I just find out when they're building their bumps and plan my courses around when they're building bumps. Other courses where we don't need bumps, I decide when would work for me, and then contact the slopes, check that it's okay with them, and then they put it in their diaries so it doesn't clash with any events and things that they're running.
Like race training.
I just kind of sorry, go on.
Like race training and freestyle and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So they have like all the facilities have a regular freestyle nights generally. So I try to avoid those. And I try to do things during the day, during the week, just because it's quieter generally. Weekends, obviously more people are available, so weekends are busier, but the snow isn't as good. So I try to do it at the quietest times possible, really. The clients just have a better experience, really, because then you're not queuing so much and things like that. Obviously, as you come into winter, then that's different. It's going to be busy all the time. But even then, during the day, during the week, is quieter than at the weekends. So it's a better experience for everybody, really.
Okay. All right. Well, that's terrific. Good. I just while I'm sitting here, because we're using Facebook Messenger to do this call, but I just came across something that I should mention. There's a guy called Andrew Reed got in touch with me, and I asked him. Well, he was just basically asking me about the podcast, but I asked him what it is about the podcast that he liked, and he said it's the technical conversations. He said, I started skiing late on in life, and my ski holidays revolve around a lot of social drinking and eating. Nobody really wants to talk about the technical side of skiing. So your podcast gives me an insight into the technical side and the more professional side and other experiences that can be had on the mountains. Keep it up and don't change the format. Which is cool. I don't think I talk enough about the technical aspects of skiing on this podcast, because I think it ends up being like personality pieces, but we've actually covered a lot of tech ground, which is pretty cool. So I'm pleased about that. Oh, you still there? Good.
Yeah, I'm still there. I was just listening. I thought you were going to say something else. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's all right. I wasn't going to fill that space, but okay, cool. Do you have anything else you want to cover?
I kind of had a little think earlier on, and I thought there was a couple of things which I think might be quite useful to talk about, and that is, like we said about the example I said to you about people going away for a 1 week skiing every day, fatigue, things like that. And a lot of people don't ski in between holidays, really. Obviously, there are the keen skiers that do ski in between the holidays, which will, get more benefit from it. So I thought, and obviously we've spoken a lot about that anyway, but there were another couple of areas, and I'm trying which I think would be useful to kind of talk about a little bit, was, how active people are physically, like prior to holidays, like how much preparation they kind of do beforehand to help with their holiday itself. And also the same thing with the mental approach as well, because both of those elements you can practice and actually not be on the slope, as it were.
Absolutely. I agree. So how do you advise? So let's say you've got, I agree, because one of the things, I think one of the client experiences is you ski, you come back home, you don't think about skiing until like 2 weeks before you go on your holiday into the next one, and you come back and you are worse, right, than you were. So I'm going skiing on Friday, and I've got to get myself kind of in a presentable shape for ski season. But the first things I'm going to do are not going to be, ragging up and down the Zermatt Glacier. It's going to be, slow speed, basic parallel stuff to get my balance all in the right place. In the same way that I've seen, in August and July, in the same way that I've seen World Cup stars doing, because they work a lot on the kind of the fundamentals. And so I don't see how, as a tourist as such, you can expect to be good like straight away, or maybe they don't care. But there is certainly a value in like preparing, and part of that preparing might be coming to see someone like you, a couple of times or once every 3 months, right?
Definitely, and like you said, actually doing things like when they are on skis, doing things at lower speed more accurate, as opposed to higher speed, just kind of ripping around the mountain. Like you say, to get more accurate, get more balanced, get warmed up, get used to sliding again. Yeah, all of those things I think are really important. And even if they do go to the slope, to an indoor slope somewhere, and have a bit of a warm up on their own without being coached necessarily, but do it with purpose, not just go and have a blast around, that type of thing. But obviously, if they want to progress quicker, that's the point where you would then need someone to help them with that and coach them through it. So yeah, definitely.
And then in terms of, do you advise clients on physical preparation for their trip to the Alps?
So I ask them how active they are. So I work with a strength and conditioning coach, actually. So people who are super keen, that's not my speciality. So I will steer them in his direction. Because, like I say, it's not my speciality. I do it, and it's made a massive difference to me. Yeah. So I'm talking from experience. And actually, when I started to do it, I think we maybe touched on this earlier on in the podcast, actually, but when I started doing strength and conditioning, it was more to alleviate back pain, which has helped massively with that. But the knock-on effect is it helps with my skiing as well. So I kind of tell people my story, and if they want to go down that route and have a bit of structure to help with their kind of their physical strength and things like that, which in turn is going to help them with skiing, but actually in life anyway. Then I steer them in his direction, or just encourage them to be active in general. If they're not particularly active, try to do things that encourage balance and coordination. Go for walks, just be more active than you were before. It's better than not doing anything. And like I said, if they want to take it a bit more seriously, then steer them down the kind of the strength conditioning coaching route. But actually I find, and I explain to them as well, is in fact, I'll I always do this example. There was someone who I trained many years ago. He hadn't been skiing very long. He'd only been skiing a couple of years, I think. He'd done his Basie level 1, but he was a pro touch rugby player.
Okay.
So like a ripped athlete, basically, not like an athlete, basically, or he was an athlete. And I started coaching him, got through his level 2, then he started training for his level 3. I haven't spoken to him for a long time, so I don't know if he ever did do his level 3, but I to do some race training on the glacier, and by the end of he went out for 10 days, I think it was, and by the end of the 10 days, he beat one of the older race kids. He's never done racing before, and I put this down to the fact that he's an athlete already. So I always use this example is if you can be more athletic and fit and strong, you're going to ski better because there's a better base to build from.
Yeah.
So that's one example I say, but also in the training, as you're training, it helps with your mental strength as well. So if you say I'm going to do 10 reps of, or whatever it might be, and the last two reps are hard to do, your brain's saying I want to stop, but you push through anyway. It's creating a stronger mindset. So the physicality side helps with the mental side as well. As well as being able to coordinate and have the strength and flexibility to be able to do what you want your body to do when you're skiing. So that's one of the main things I try to educate people in, I guess. I
think that is so it's interesting that you caught me on to this day in particular, because this morning I just felt I was listening to something last night and I've realised that I had got out of the habit of walking, and I used to walk a lot when I had my dog, and I don't walk anymore. So since the dog died, it's all just gone. I don't know where I used to find the time to go walking, but I'm kind of going to try and put it back in my life somehow. And so I went out this morning, got up, was like, right, well, I'm still thinking about it, I'm going. And kind of I went and ended up walking for like half an hour. But I already feel great, I'm planning to kind of add that into my life, along with all the other active stuff that I kind of try to do to just keep, like you say, for reasons of injury and back and whatnot. I've got some interesting stuff to say about back, actually, which I need to mention. I'm going to write that down here. But one of the things that I found, I try to move, but I'm not these days like in the gym or anything like that anymore. I actually think that for skiing, I think agility and being lighter is better for that, because I think that the leg strength comes from being on snow anyway. So at the start of the season, I cannot ski from the top of Morjan down to the bottom in one hit, but after about a month I can, and so that comes from just skiing daily. But I think there's more value in having quick feet and agility rather than outright strength. I think you leave that for the downhillers and all those stuff you see of the kind of the World Cup guys doing big reps and massive squats and all that sort of stuff. Well, they're athletes, they're not doing what we're doing, and I think there's more value in speed of movement rather than straight up strength. But yeah, I'm kind of trying. I don't know, my pre-season fitness looks like go skiing a lot, do a bit of dirt biking, which is great for the quads, and walking. And I think that's about as much as I'm going to do, and playing football. So that's kind of the active side of what I do these days.
You sound pretty active to me, Dave.
It doesn't feel like it, put it that way. But that then leads on to, and this may tie in to the back thing as well, because I recently came across a really interesting document. It was given to me by a friend of mine, Danny, who's also featured on this podcast actually, but he's studying for a PhD and he's doing his thesis on pain. I think pain perception or something like that. It's a really, really interesting document. It says if you've sort of multiple times injured the same injury, which is my experience with my lower back, is actually what can happen is the sensors, I think they're called nociceptors or something like that. They and anyone who wants this information can write to me and I'll send you the document because it's really, really interesting. But basically what can happen is the receptors that send the signals of pain to the lower back, which then to the spinal cord, which then sends the signal to the brain, can become oversensitive so that they react too much to something that they perceive as pain, but actually isn't that serious. And so you end up having this sort of repetitive cycle of your back like locking up or seizing up, and mine is, I move in the wrong way and my back goes, and then all the muscles like tense up, and it takes ages to kind of undo it all. And I went through this workbook, and it's super, super interesting, and it's made a massive difference, and it seems to have calmed down this pain response that has been my experience for the last God knows how many years, like 3-4 years. In fact, before that. But it was just getting silly, like I couldn't even make like the most basic movements without this kind of pain signal being almost turned up to like 10, instead of it being a 2 or a 3. And it's made a huge difference. And so that's one example of a kind of a mental approach of like getting some sort of perspective on what is actually happening, rather than the perception of, oh, this is a disaster, it's all going wrong again, kind of thing. Do you see what I mean?
Definitely, that's really, really interesting. Actually, there's
I'll send you that document when I've got it, because I think it's really interesting for people to read, and it might be useful for your clients.
Definitely, no, I'll be interested for them, but also for me. Actually, that's really interesting. There's a book that I read actually called I think it's called Meditation to Ease Pain Relief,
Mm-hmm.
and it's along the same lines as that about. You've got primary pain, so the actual pain that there is, and then the secondary pain, like how you read, and that's along the same kind of lines of what you're saying, I think.
Yeah.
And actually, I found that really interesting, because what I found is with that pain side of things is through kind of meditation. It sounds a bit deep, but it's worked for me. Is almost like recognizing, I can feel pain here, but rather than like, I feel pain, it's getting worse, etc., is just kind of monitoring it and seeing how it changes. And it's really bizarre, because what happens is like it varies, so the amount and the size and it basically they encourage you to kind of observe it from the outside, and then over a period of time, whilst you're doing that, it seems to decrease.
Yes.
Not because you're trying to, but just because you're kind of observing it, and then it then goes away. It sounds really out there, but I find that really does help as well.
No, I don't think it sounds out there at all. I think one of the things that I've started to do just before I go to bed at night is journaling positive things that have happened during the day. So getting away from this negative cycle is, my back will not ever get better. Oh, I'm stuck with this and it's only ever going to get worse. Like looking for positives and actually almost dismissing this, because I've come to view it as a thing now, like a sort of a thing where you would say something like, oh, my back, in quotes, like my back is a problem. Or it's like, is it actually? Or is it just a thing and I'm not going to talk about this thing anymore? I'm just going to get on with my life and I'm not going to be held back by this thing anymore. And it's a sort of a change of mindset that I'm trying to create generally in my life about a lot of things, get away from negativity and try and see the positives and work out what positive things are surrounding me that I like to do, and it's something that we're focusing on quite heavily in my house. Actually, my wife's doing a similar thing. So I don't know, but
I find that really interesting. Like that point about looking for the positives as opposed to negatives. If you I can't remember. There's lots of podcasts I've listened to where they talk about that, and I try it as well. And if you basically, your brain will find whatever you're looking for. So if you're looking for the positives, you'll find the positives. If you look for the negatives, you'll find the negatives. So looking for solutions as opposed to woe me like type thing, it helps you kind of find ways forward, doesn't it?
Yeah, very much so, very much. And we're surrounded by a lot of negativity. Like I find that the UK, when I go back to visit it, I find it a very, very negative place. There's a lot of people worrying about a lot of things. It's the nature, I think, of British people to worry, I suppose. But the media doesn't help. If you turn off the TV and you turn off social media, life suddenly becomes much better because you're just not surrounded and bombarded by the latest messages that are telling you that everything is terrible. I'm just sick of that. Absolutely sick of people telling me that this is crap and that is crap, and this is the next thing to worry about. I just don't care. I just don't care. And actually, when you turn it all off, you actually realise that it's just all, you don't have to worry about it. If there's some important news that needs to come, it will find me, somehow. I don't need to worry about it so much. And I think that negativity has caused a lot of my back issues over the last, if I think about all the negativity that's bombarded us over the last 2 or 3 years to do with COVID and stuff, and the worry that's caused with the ski school, and whether it's going to be a good, all right season or not all right season, all that sort of stuff. I think it can't help but have a bad effect on you physically, because there's just so much stuff that you're told to worry about. But if you turn it all off, apparently none of it matters. I don't feel like I'm missing out at all.
That's a great outlook to have, Dave.
Well, I'd like to think so. The last thing I would want to add, just to the points that you made about mental training, which I think that is really, really important, is that you can get a lot done. This is really going to sound really out there, Stuart, so bear with me. But if you are prepping for your ski holiday, you can get quite a lot done mentally by just rehearsing what it feels like to ski in your head in the 10 minutes before you go to bed. Like if you really focus and you do that kind of mental visualization, you can really get all your movements working, because you can kind of see yourself, and you can see an image of yourself skiing, and you can see where the transition point is, and you can see where you would push off from one ski to the other. You can see what your hands are supposed to be doing, and feel the movements, and feel that image with colour and light and movement and all that sort of thing. I used that quite successfully in some of the exams that I've had to pass, but just to kind of get yourself into tune, there's a lot you can do just through kind of visualization and seeing yourself skiing the best that you could possibly see yourself,
Have you done that quite a lot, have you?
I have done that quite a lot, in my life, for sure. I did it very successfully with that bumps run thing that I was talking about before, that kind of zip line bumps run. I visualised the whole thing and related, I think I've talked about it on this pod before in a different episode, but related it to an image of kind of walking through like a corridor with a series of doors with kind of exams passed, and at the end there was this one door that relied on this kind of bumps run, and I could see myself kind of walking through the door and into this place where I would pass this exam. That was really powerful, actually. But I genuinely think if you think very hard about your own skiing, you can feel those movements, and you can get the timing in order and all that sort of stuff. You have a really good look around your own skiing and kind of see how it should look, and just so that it's clear in your mind when you do finally arrive in that physical place, Yeah,
that's really interesting. There's can't remember if we spoke about it last time, but there was a study along those lines of, and I can't remember where it was, and I tried to look it up the other day, but I couldn't find it. But I've heard it quite a lot about, I think there were like 3 groups of people learning how to play the keyboard. And one group, I'm trying to remember it exactly because it was a really interesting study. One group basically had a keyboard. They were taught a scale, but none of them could play the keyboard, by the way. And one group had a keyboard to take away, and they were taught a scale, and they had to practice it over a number of days or whatever. And then they had another group which didn't have a keyboard, and all they had to do was to visualize. And what was the third group? Can't remember. But anyway, actually, the main point was the group that visualized performed equally as well as the group that had a keyboard to be able to practice it.
Oh, that's interesting.
Which I find is super interesting. And on that same, and I've heard it on numerous podcasts, your brain doesn't know the difference between reality and reality. So if you're practicing those certain movement patterns, like you've just said about skiing, your body still thinks it's doing it, even if it's not doing it.
That's curious. Okay.
If I find that study at some point, I'll send it over to you because I find that unbelievable. There's quite a few studies like that as well, which I find is pretty amazing that you can train yourself to do things without actually doing them.
Yeah.
I did a similar thing actually on my Euro test, and not to the same extent necessarily as to what you were saying, but I'd inspect the course and then visualize sections of the course when I'm coming up the lift, and I did that every single run. So, not every single run, but every single time I went back up the lift, and I did that in training as well to help me remember the different sections of it. So it's less of a oh my God, there's a gate here. You know it because you've already played it through in your mind.
Yeah, that's right.
So a similar thing to what you were doing, but not intentionally doing that. But it's I find that really interesting. Definitely.
I think it's really valid, and it's something that, I mean, you have to kind of work hard at it because sometimes it's hard to quieten your brain down. You know, we've all got so much going on inside our own heads. Well, I certainly have anyway. But, you know, in order to be able to focus down on that one thing that you're doing, but it's certainly something that I think people would benefit from for sure. And you know, I'm given how your marketing looks to loop this back to where we were. I think it's definitely something you could bring to your clients and be quite unique, you know.
Definitely. No, it's a good idea. I mean, it's not. I don't really talk about visualizations too much, so that's interesting with clients. Sorry, so that's interesting. An interesting angle, definitely.
Cool. All right. Well, look, I'm going to. I've got to go. I've got a theatre class, a ballet lesson, and all sorts of stuff to go to. None of these are for me. They are for my daughter. But I'm a ballet dad. So just remind everybody before you shoot off where people can find you, because this will go out as a second episode of our podcast series.
Okay, so you can find me on my website, which is skifocus.co.uk. Okay. I do a lot on social media, so there's loads of content on my Instagram, which is skifocus, and on my skifocus on Facebook actually, and Instagram. There's loads of, like, I've done loads of reels and things like that with little tips to help with different things in people's skiing. And some of those refer to the mindset side as well. If you want to find out more mindset specific content, then that's on my personal page. So that's Stuart J. Bernard on Instagram, and the same on Facebook as well. That has got loads and loads of mindset kind of reels and things like that, like quick kind of videos to get different ideas of tactics and things that help me manage emotions and things like that. So yeah, there's loads on loads on social media, really.
Okay. Well, after we've done this, drop me. I don't know whether I've got your phone number or not for WhatsApp, but if you drop me a phone number, and I'll send you that document on the study about pain perception, because I think it's really well. It's like a workbook for you to work through, and it's got like a whole bunch of exercises and stuff. It's really. I've felt great since I've done it. It really puts everything into perspective, so it's worth a look.
No, I appreciate that, Dave. That would be really good. That would be really good. I wanted to say, actually, thank you so much for inviting me on this. It's really cool to have a chat with you, and also to chat with a like-minded person, actually, who has similar kind of outlook on life, which is really cool. So thank you. And also, I'd like to say, Dave, thank you for all the content you're getting out there, like with your podcast. It's amazing. So good work. Well, I really enjoyed it. So thank you.
I'm gonna cry now. I feel great. But
don't cry.
I don't know. I'm just the people I meet through doing this is just amazing. You know, the conversations that we've had over these like 3 hours is just brilliant. And you know, one day we'll get to meet in person. It'll be brilliant. And I'm just I don't know. I kind of lost a little bit of focus on it over the summer, but actually now there's these 2 episodes that we've got in the can here. Had an amazing conversation the other day with Darren Turner, and I've got a couple of others coming up, and it's fascinating to see what people have kind of seen and what they're into, and I think it's great. It's great, and someone needs to record all this stuff for posterity, because otherwise this stuff gets, I don't know, like lost. You know, when we depart and we go, all of this stuff is there for other people, and it's like a resource that I'm hoping that other ski instructors can use without having to find out all this stuff themselves, like I've had to do over these years. You know.
Yeah, no, definitely. I couldn't agree more. It's amazing.
All right.
So thank you.
Well, no worries. Well, thank you. Thanks for taking the time this morning.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome.